The plot is bright and oh so beautiful, and if I am over dutiful, wait, where can I go? The story's young, and I'm in love with...
Hey, shut up, David! We don't do theme song anymore, so stop embarrassing yourself. Well, we do them sometimes, I guess, but not this time!
Oh, but I worked so hard on that.
Well, whose fault is that? Dumbass! That's okay. Well, actually, not this time, though, because today I brought in famed French chef Gaston Crayon de Papier to help us advertise his products. So you, David, you go sit in the corner over there and take it away, Gaston!
Bonjour, messieurs of the wit. I, the great Gaston Crayon de Papier, am only delighted to show you the grandeur of what we French call the cuisine de l'histoire. Or, to make sense of it to you Americans, the art of story cooking. Why would you possibly want to write stories when you could cook them? All the great authors of France created their masterpieces through cuisine de l'histoire. Voltaire, Victor Hugo, Jules Verne. Do you think the great works of French literature, like The Count of Monte Cristo or 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, were created by writing on paper? Ha! They were cooked!
To be fair, Gaston, I don't really write on paper either, I just mainly use a computer.
But of course, computers are magnificent. But if you want to write a story that could stand the test of time, like Notre Dame de Paris, then you must call on the art of cuisine de l'histoire.
Hey, wait, you don't think Megazoic will stand the test of time? Which, by the way, buy on Amazon.com!
Ah, your recently published novel about the dinosaurs with the laser guns. Oh, mais oui, that story will surely stand with Lemmy and the Three Musketeers as the great works of literature in history.
Okay, I'll ignore the sarcastic shot of my work because we've been paid some handsome money for this ad, so tell us about story cooking, Gaston, please. I'm very interested.
Cuisine de l'histoire involves the art of putting all the ingredients of what makes a good story into a dish, and after just a few precious seconds in the oven, creating a story that will make all the critics bow before your excellence in the art of storytelling. We provide the ingredients and ship them right to your doorstep, so you too can enjoy cuisine de l'histoire. I shall demonstrate for you. What kind of story would you like me to create for you?
How about a fantasy story with orcs and dragons and crap?
Bah, of course you would want that, you silly boy. Nevertheless, I shall humor you. Alright, we will start with spreading the ingredient high fantasy across this pan, then adding a dash of adventure, a pinch of romance, sprinkled with some war and mystical beasts. Then, to top it off, we add a microgram of plot and character, and throw it into the oven and... voila! Your fantasy story with orcs and dragons and crap is served.
Wow. What world building, what adventure. Oh, what grand battles. This is the best fantasy story I've ever read. Or eaten or whatever.
Merci, Monsieur Donald. And this can be yours, listeners. For only une petite fortune, the art of cuisine de l'histoire is yours.
Wow, for only une petite fortune? What a deal! I'm sold! I'm getting cuisine de l'histoire today, or story cooking, whatever it's called. I don't care, I'm getting it.
Merci, Monsieur Donald and Messieurs of the Witwit. To all you listeners, bon appetit! This has been the great Gaston Crayon de Papier.
Oh, that was good stuff, Gaston. Thank you very much for coming in. Alright, welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Witwits, the podcast where we enjoy talking about the best stories ever seen, the worst crap that no one should put out, and asking all the hard questions like, why can't Force Awakens be any more original? My god, it's Star Wars! Like, they don't need to risk it. People are gonna go see it anyway. Ah!
Well, they obviously didn't use cuisine d'histoire, but too little too late, right?
Ugh, yeah, I guess.
Anyway,
okay, let me clarify something. I'm not one of those bandwagon haters. I hated Force Awakens from day one, and now people are like finally starting to turn against it. Here's why, though. Here's my theory. So, I'm not really big on Star Wars. Like, I think it's fine. I'm not one of those guys who, like, saw Star Wars as a kid, just stared googly-eyed at the TV, and just got all the merchandise immediately. Like, I liked it fine. I think Jurassic Park was my Star Wars as a kid.
Well, considering that was actually your era as a child as opposed to the 70s, that might...
Well, yeah, but I did watch Star Wars in VHS a lot as a kid. But anyways, so once I grew up, and then Star Wars was kind of like, just another fun franchise, I guess. But then I saw everyone go nuts with The Force Awakens. And so when I saw it, all the flaws of it were very much apparent to me because I wasn't blinded by my Star Wars goggles. Fanboy goggles.
I was about to say, maybe nostalgia goggles is the better term, but anyway.
Right, I guess. But people were first like, oh my gosh, Star Wars is back. Oh, look at all this Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And look at Star Wars. Then finally they're like, hey, wait a minute. Starkiller Base is a terrible idea. I did a whole skit on it once. I might read that later. On what we at the Rit have once writ a long time ago.
Oh, when we finally do that episode of our past works.
At this point, we're going to have to split it into two. Alright. So, anyways, that was our intro.
Okay, so I guess we're moving into our regular segments, including what will we rip off from this month? Now, if you don't mind, Donald, since you tend to go first, I kind of want to
No, I've tried to balance this back and forth. I've done the last two, I think, so you do this one.
All right.
Have you do the next one after that?
Something majorly rare happened. I watched a TV show that was not tokusatsu.
What? Oh my god!
The name of this show is Goku-sen, which is actually short for Gokudo.
Oh, so it's still Japanese.
It is still Japanese. It's still Japanese.
Oh, okay, never mind. Let me reiterate. What? Oh my goodness. Not quite as scream-worthy. It's not like you watch... I don't know, Parks and Rec.
or Big Bang Theory or something. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So the title is actually a portmanteau of a couple of different words, and the first one is Gokudo, which refers to somebody who's affiliated with the Japanese Yakuza, which is like the Japanese version of the Mafia, for those who don't know.
So is this where Goku from Dragon Ball Z gets his name?
No, it's different than Goku. Son Goku is actually based more on a Chinese
on
myth.
Sun Wukong, right? From Chinese mythology?
Anyways.
Okay.
Point being that the full name of the show is Gokudo no Sensei. Sensei means teacher. So they shorten it to Goku-sen.
I knew that.
Now, just imagine how difficult it might be balancing a life where you've been raised by the Yakuza and suddenly becoming a teacher. A serious teacher to children. Oh my god,
so it's like those teachers who are preschool teachers at day, and at night they're strippers.
If such a thing exists, then that's a pretty interesting comparison.
Sure it's more common than you might think, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the truth. Anyway, the point being that watching this show is quite hilarious because there are two very distinct styles of speech. When she's trying to be the teacher, and when she slips into this Yakuza character, and every time it catches people by surprise, and she just tries to smile it off and say, oh, what I actually meant was... It's hilarious. But,
So is this live action or is this an anime?
Yes, it is live action.
Okay, because I was imagining it as an anime, but okay.
No, it is.
Right, cool.
It might have been based on a manga. I don't remember. A lot of shows...
What? They adapt manga into non-anime properties? Cool.
Yeah, well, I mean... A lot of stories that are reused in Japan and created into TV shows. Some of them are a lot of them are anime, but there are some that are live action. However, I can't speak to whether Goku-sen started as a manga or not. Anyway, the point being that I'd really like to have a chance with a character like that who, they just can't suppress this hidden nature. They're trying to keep veiled, and they just keep slipping because stuff happens, and it's hilarious.
See, I like that too. I feel like, though, again, because you've said before, and I definitely agree, I love writing comedy, and I write serious stuff, of course, but a lot of it does interplay with a lot of comedy of it. So if I did something like that, it would be, like, so obvious. It would be like if Bruce Banner was trying to teach a class, and then suddenly he hulked out for like a second, and then came back.
Oh, and then came back. Well, we might talk more about the Hulk later, but anyways.
But that's how I do it. Something like that that's super obvious, and people are like, does Dr. Banner look a little different today?
I'm sorry. Can I just throw out there, for those of you who are of an appropriate age, I'd say, late teens or so, there's a video on College Humor about Betty trying to hook up with the Hulk. Not Bruce, but the Hulk. It's hilarious. You should look it up.
That sounds pretty good.
Anyway.
Now, this is Betty like Betty her
Ross.
Girlfriend, not Betty and Veronica.
Betty Ross, not Betty and Veronica, because that would be a completely weird crossover. Anyways,
Veronica is what the Hulkbuster was called.
That is true.
Avengers Age of Ultron.
But
that's totally a reference. It's got to be, right?
Well, I guess it wasn't blonde, so... No, wait, sorry, Veronica's brunette. Never mind. Anyhow, we'll stop talking about Archie, because it's not something I know very well. Another one that I wanted to mention, there is a very... this one is a tokusatsu show. It's for nighttime viewers. Like, they air it at, 1:30 in the morning or something. It's designed for mature audiences, which is kind of the point. The series is called
Oh, so
Gara.
I could watch this here in America at the normal amount of day, right?
I don't know if you could get it on your television, but theoretically, if it was, active, you might be able to find it.
Right, no, I know. I'm being silly.
Anyway, so I'm watching I'm watching this series chronologically, and I love this series. I haven't talked about it much, but there's a wolf motif to all of the main, fighters of the show. And they do have armor that they transform into, so it is a tokusatsu show. But anyway, the latest series is based around two couples. One of them is kind of like a power couple that went bad, They used to be... The term they use is Makai Knight, which Makai is like this evil dimension where these ancient enemy, the horrors, come from. So they guard the human world against these horrors, and thus they're called Makai Knights. And the counterparts are Makai Priests. Well, this male Makai Knight and female Makai Priest got married. I won't spoil.
So this is different from normal priests where you can't get married.
Well, if you're looking solely at one definition of the word priest, then yes. However...
I guess that's true. I mean, fantasy priests can do whatever.
However, point being that this couple used to be the, protectors, and they've completely slid because of something that happened. I haven't gotten far enough in the show to discover what that is, but it's fascinating because they're diametrically opposed to this main character who's a Makai Knight, and his partner, his supporter, who's a female Makai Priest. And everybody that watches the show should theoretically be, alert to the fact that they're, trying to become a couple, but they just won't move down the road to relationship. So if you...
That's yeah.
Well, it's a very Japanese thing, I have to say that.
Right.
But beyond
Sounds like
that,
a very me thing, too.
All right, fair enough.
Actually, it's more like that. Actually, no, it's people I know. They won't move. And damn it, I just want to beat... Okay, I'm going to stop. So I stop sounding like some sort of deranged stalker. All right. I'm a nice guy, listeners. If you want to email me, go on MatthewDoverCrew.com.
Anyways, no, I like the idea of, this is one path that this main couple could go down. This power couple could choose the right. They could fall to the wrong. And they're, completely opposed. And they're completely playing this up. And I really love that idea. So, maybe I should try using it later.
Oh, sounds good. You could write a story about a neo-Nazi and an Antifa member almost falling in love, right? Because that's a modern American equivalent. Politics!
Politics, because I like talking about them so much.
Oh, God. Okay, let me just say real quick as a public service message. I don't condone neo-Nazism, in case you ever thought I did. Okay.
Anyways, thanks for the
just
public
feel like
service
that
announcement.
No stance is not a good stance, so there's my stance. Neo-Nazis and Nazis in general can...
I just want to say, can't we all get along? Anyways...
I can get along with everyone except for neo-Nazis.
Well, I'm just... in a general perspective...
Unless they make classic Broadway musicals like Springtime for Hitler and later on go
that
to
was
make
done by a
Prisoners
Jew!
of Love.
Mel Brooks is Jewish.
No, I know. I meant the character in Producers. Franz Liebkind.
Oh, okay.
Will Ferrell in the remake.
Will Ferrell acted as Franz Liebkind in the...
Even though he was a neo-Nazi
version.
and he did that neo-Nazi play, he later on went to help collaborate with them with Prisoners of Love and their other following stuff.
Anyways, my biggest stance on this entire thing is if we could simply try to understand each other better, which I realize is not easy. It won't eliminate all conflict. I'm not that naive. But seriously, why have so many people forgotten the golden rule? Treat others how you want to be treated. Point being that we need to treat each other better, and that
we certainly do.
It starts with us. It starts with everybody who's listening, everybody who's writing stories, everybody who can influence the next generation. It starts with us. It starts now. There's no reason for it not to. We're way too many years too late. Can I leave it there and talk about what you...
Yes, absolutely. Diablo 3. I've been playing that next. Nazis should go in the burning hells of Diablo 3. And speaking of which, I'm playing Diablo 3.
Gee, I wonder how Diablo 3 came up.
So, like, I just got into this game. One of my college roommates, he told me, like, I should get into this, and I thought about it for a while. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, fine. And I really like it. Like, I thought it's really fun. Like, it's basically a dungeon crawler. Which means, like, you go through various things, fight various monsters, have a class, you beat stuff up, you have items, you have different stuff. It's like, so you level up, it's an RPG, right? But it's very action-based. Mm-hmm. You'd probably like bits of it, because a lot of it kind of reminds me a little bit of Ratchet and Clank with the leveling up sort of thing. Although Ratchet and Clank, I guess what it does is it takes RPG-like elements, because a lot of games that aren't RPGs that take RPG-like elements, and Ratchet and Clank is one of them, so... Mm-hmm. So, you might like that aspect. And plus, I keep thinking of, there's no really a linear path. I mean, there is sort of, but like the dungeons kind of sprawl out, which makes me keep thinking of whenever you play Ratchet and Clank and try to find all the crystals or whatever. You have to go through every last thing. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go this way because this might lead to the story moment. But I'm not done exploring. I gotta go that way.
I haven't gotten that area yellow on the map yet.
Right, exactly.
I have to crisscross this planet until it is done.
I have to crisscross this dark cathedral full of demons because there's that one chamber I missed.
I have to keep going because there's that one corner that I completely could avoid that I just can't bring myself to do.
I mean, if I don't, then I might be level 39 instead of level 40, and I can't... Wait, yeah, okay, that's what I meant. Okay, yes. I was trying to figure out if I had it arranged correctly. Anyways. Alright, well, I thought it was fun. I've now officially played all of Blizzard's current library, so... Except for... I did try World of Warcraft. I'm not really a fan of it. And the only one I haven't played is Hearthstone, and I'm just not even going to try. That kind of game genre is not really the card sort of thing. It's not really my thing. But I do like Overwatch. I do like Heroes of the Storm. I do like StarCraft 2. They just did a remaster version of StarCraft 1. It's pretty good, too. It was, as for what I'm going to rip off of it specifically, the dark atmosphere. Like, as I often have said before, like in our episode about lighthearted stories, which, for more information, listen to episode 5 of The Ritwit.
Cheap plug.
Yep, right on cue. Anyway, so, I like how they make it dark, but at the same time, it's still like a fantasy adventure. Like, there's clearly, like, a lot you can do, like, as just a normal guy. If you want, you can cower in fear in your village, or if you want, you can be a badass barbarian or wizard or monk or witch doctor, whatever, and fight all these demons, and they're everywhere.
Sure, because you're in, like,
apparently in
hell,
this world,
right?
if you if you don't give a person a proper burial, they will come out as a zombie. So that's very important because there's so much demonic energy just everywhere. And I also really like how the world is inspired by like Christian quote unquote mythology. And, like, there's, like, different types of angels and different types of demons. There's no real ultimate god or ultimate devil. Like, even Diablo himself is more like...
Seraphim, Ophanim, and Nephilim.
Right, like,
Cherubim.
yeah, like, something like that. I mean, they're not exactly like that. They're, like, they're clearly inspired by that. Like, Diablo himself, though, he's, like, one of the prime evils. And there's, like, a bunch of different other evils. One is the Lord of Sin. One is the Lord of Gluttony. Well, I guess that's a type of sin. One of them is, like, the Lord of Lies.
Sounds like they're referencing the 7 deadly sins there, but you know.
Right, exactly. And Asmodean is kind of like, which is this Lord of Sin, is like kind of the combination of all of them. But one of them is just lies, right? And then Diablo is the Lord of Terror. And the way he becomes the top one is that he fights his way up there. He betrays all the other demons and then manages to sneak into against the angels. And here's the thing that's really cool. Hell invading Earth, like a Hell on Earth scenario, that's been done quite a lot.
Sure.
Diablo, though, in Diablo 3, takes it a step further. He's like, screw Earth, I'm going to invade heaven.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool idea.
That would be quite the logical progression, I suppose, if you've conquered everything else.
Right, like, I feel like, I mean, I really like when you, like, escalate certain tropes, and I'm sure this has been done before, but I haven't really seen it nearly as much as Hell invading Earth. Like, it's actually a lot scarier, I think. I mean, not just that it's more powerful, but, like, and Diablo comes really close to destroying everything. And it's kind of fascinating. Like, he breaks in and he takes all the angels out one by one.
Right, you know?
Right, exactly. But, like, I just think it's a cool idea. Like, Hell's not invading Earth, Hell's invading heaven. And winning, almost. So I think that's cool.
Definitely an unusual story to tell. Like, I can't think of too many other examples where Hell directly tried to just invading, as you say, heaven, so, you know.
Right, like, I feel like a lot of them would go to heaven after, like, maybe most demons plan on that, but they have to conquer Earth first, and they never get that far because the heroes always stop them. So maybe the sequel series to Left Behind or whatever is the after the rapture is the demons going up to heaven and being like, okay, we're done with Earth.
We've already ravaged Earth. It's time to take down those who were saved.
Yeah, exactly. Setting our sights further. Moving this pin further down the map. All right, anyway, so I like that. I would like to write a more darker story at some point, so... And this is kind of like something that I would like to do, because this is like the kind of story I would like to write. And the ending with, like, the whole thing with Diablo invading heaven, yeah, that's unusual, but it's so Blizzard. Blizzard trying to make everything, like, as big and epic as possible. And that's what I kind of like to do, too, so...
Yep. It's definitely notable in your stories.
Right. Anyways, real quick, though, there's not really much I'm going to rip off from this, other than the obvious. But I rewatched Disney's Dinosaur.
Oh.
A childhood favorite of mine.
Gee, I wonder what else you're going to rip off from that movie.
I don't know. Maybe all the lemurs in it. Which, by the way, I hate the fact that those are in there. That's my main criticism. It is so obvious that some dumbass executive was like, dinosaurs aren't relatable. We need something cute and cuddly.
Oh, let's have lemurs in there.
Lemurs, I guess. Well, lemurs weren't around back then. Primates weren't around back then. Like, mammals were around, but not primates. Not yet.
Fair enough.
But no, it's a good movie, though. I like it. A lot of people don't seem to like it, but I guess I just like dinosaurs too much. Like, that's like how Star Wars Force Awakens, people have their Star Wars fanboy goggles on. I have my dinosaur fanboy goggles on whenever I see that movie.
All right.
Because whatever faults are in it other than the lemurs, I guess, I completely ignore. I'm just like, dinosaurs. The movie's called Dinosaur.
Well, gee, at least they're not, like, false advertising. I'm curious, though, because I haven't, full disclaimer, have not seen that movie. But are all of the designs...
Out of all the movies that you haven't seen, this one's okay. I'll forgive you for this one.
Oh, well, thank you for forgiving me one movie! But anyway, are all the designs, like, basically accurate, what you'd expect?
For the most part. The iguanodons have lips rather than beaks. The reason why, though, I feel like is probably an animation thing.
A lot easier
It makes it more obvious to express... Yeah, right. But other than that, yeah... The Carnotaurs, though, the villains are Carnotaurs. They call them Carnotaurs, but the full species is Carnotaurus.
Right.
They clearly did because they don't want to do T-Rex, which good on them, but they made Carnotaurus like a pseudo-T-Rex. Carnotaurus was not this big. They made it T-Rex size.
Basically, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right?
But it does look cool. Like, it has the horns and it has the armor, like, spikes on its back, so it's it's like a dragon T-Rex. So I kind of like how they did something different. However... Okay, so I'll forgive the Carnotaurus, and I guess I'll forgive the lemurs. Because it has the distinction of having the most accurate representation of a pterodactyl in film history.
Even though it was done, even though it was, like, CG?
Yeah, okay, I mean, barring if we ever go back in time and take a photograph of what an actual pterosaur looks like.
Well, I'm just asking because, like, I can't... The film was not live action. It was all CG, right?
It was live action environments.
Live action environments, but they put computer generated images in there. So
yes.
So basically,
so I meant more how it was depicted. Like,
so that model is the most accurate that has ever been used in a dinosaur film, is what you're saying,
right? Because it's at the beginning. It's at that part that's in all the trailers where it shows the egg's journey.
Shows the pterodactyl flying through the valley.
Right, and over the dinosaurs and getting all the kids like me super excited. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta go see
dinosaurs! Kind of thing.
Completely hiding the fact that they talk. By the way, I remember my parents and I were very surprised that these dinosaurs started talking.
Well, how would you tell a story if they didn't? I suppose. I mean, if it was the lemurs.
Oh yeah, the lemurs are the only ones that... Oh my god, I hate that so much. Okay. Just make it a narrator, that's what I say.
And the narrator is a lemur! Got it, problem solved.
Alright, anyways, so, okay, good on you. Alright, so it grabs the egg with its beak, not its claws. Like, a lot of people seem to have pterodactyls grabbing stuff by their claws because they're putting what birds do into it. Pterodactyl claws were not designed for that. In fact, they were also... The thing about pterosaurs is that their wings... weren't just the front limbs, like birds and bats. They were both. The the fingertips of the arms spread out the wing. However, the flap of the wing went all the way down to the lower legs. So...
okay.
So, while it was formed mostly by the front arms, it went to the back. So when it walked on all fours, like a bat.
So if I'm if I'm correct in assuming that most dinosaur films are, basically inputting avian qualities in so it looks familiar to us, but it's actually not the case, and thus the most accurate representation is the one from Dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. So so it has those while it's flying. It flies properly. It doesn't fly like an eagle like some people have. It flies correctly. It does swooping, very rare flaps rather than just constant buzzes like some of them might be. Also, it nests by the sea, which is a lot of people think it does, because since pterosaurs were so big, it needs that extra push of air that the sea would provide.
Right.
Yeah, and also on a cliff, it gives it plenty of room to dive a little bit before rising, so...
Yep.
Anyways, good on them. They got a pterosaur correct.
More than you can say for a lot of dinosaur films, which I'm sure you've seen every single dinosaur film in existence.
Absolutely not the case. There's a lot of sci-fi dinosaur movies. There was one, I saw this...
Maybe that should be on your to discover list, huh? For next
okay, well,
Witties.
here we go. Well, I saw on Netflix this movie called Cowboys vs. Dinosaurs.
What? Like, I heard of Cowboys
Sci-Fi
vs.
Channel
Aliens,
movie.
but seriously?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know what? So how I mentioned, I guess they must have heard me comparing Megazoic as an example what to do with blending two stuff together with Cowboys and Aliens and how not to do it, and what's combining those two things together? And thus you get Cowboys versus Dinosaurs.
But the publication date, I'm not sure that totally works, because a show obviously is in concept form for a while before getting released, right?
I like how you think that I'm being serious.
Well, I mean, it's just worth saying that they probably
it's not a show, it's a movie. It's like a sci-fi channel movie that happens to be on Netflix you can watch.
Well, I don't have Netflix, otherwise I might. But anyway.
And also, it's not realistic in terms of the West either.
I wonder, were dinosaurs alive when the West was a thing?
Well, and also, one of the still images, because they're trying to advertise it, is a girl running away from this dinosaur in a bikini. Because we totally had bikinis in the Wild West, right?
Well, sex sells. That's pretty much all you can say.
And it's a modern bikini, too. It's not like they tried to Westify it by making
So there are no tassels or anything, it's just string, right?
Right, exactly. It's a modern bikini. It has 1 star average rating on Netflix, too. Anyways, that's I guess, what I'm gonna rip off. Dinosaurs, Diablo, and Western bikinis. What a collection.
In the same story? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, let's do it. A dinosaur devil. Wait a minute, that already exists. That's a Marvel character. Anyways.
Devil dinosaur, anyway.
Right, but he's wearing a bikini, too.
Well, he does have his partner Moon Girl, so I guess you could do that, but anyway.
There we go. Anyways.
Can we just stop talking about bikinis, please? It's the last place we need to go.
No, I don't want to. No, okay, fine. This is why I'm lonely. No, it's fine. Okay, what? Now we're at the next segment called, I can do this, What We at the Wit have writ. I think I did it. I don't know. Who cares? Let's move on.
Well, I've managed a couple of separate songs fully done with lyrics. I'm actually kind of proud of them.
Nice.
I've been spending
Do you
a lot
have music
of time...
to them or just lyrics?
Well, a couple of them I tend to, create them as I'm singing, so there's, that basis of music, but,
it's not like you've written down the specific notes.
Right.
You're not writing
the music could
books.
change.
Okay.
It's just off the top of my head, and I remember it the same way, then I do it the same way, and sometimes it works. Anyway, I'm actually kind of proud of the lyrics. I also, fun story, there are a couple of Japanese language songs that I've been learning recently, but I'm doing a fun activity where I'm starting an English choir here.
Okay.
And so...
Well, that's good. English.
Right. And so I'm actually translating the songs and trying to set English lyrics to them, which I don't know if it's ever been done on those songs before. So that's... okay, not necessarily the lyrics I use. I have seen translations, but they're very literal, and they don't necessarily fit the melody very well. But,
right.
I pride myself on trying to make it fit the music as much as possible, which leads to some interesting choices, and maybe the lyrics don't always make sense, and the translations aren't exact, but I really end up liking the results. So,
nice. Well, that's good. That's the important part.
I suppose that counts. Also, been spending time talking with one of our other collaborators, and using that as inspiration to think more about my character, which is always helpful because my character is just a cluster F of ideas that really haven't been realized.
So this is Monstron, right?
No, this is Titan.
Okay, because if it was Monstron, I just want to let you know. And by the way, our listeners, You don't need to know who these people are. Who cares? Anyway, so I hung out with Mostron last night, and I talked to him about it a little bit. Anyways, I probably should have done a little bit more. But anyways, whatever. I'll let you know about that after we record. Anyways, I'm keeping this in, by the way.
I was about to say, this is going to make no sense because we don't have time to do an elevator pitch for it. Anyways. But, basically everything but, actual progress.
That's okay. You've written songs. I'll forgive that. I'll forgive you for, and that's writing. Like writing is a bunch of different.
Writing
stuff.
takes a bunch of different forms, and I happen to be using a version that is very close to my heart because obviously, I should have mentioned
working abroad music major.
I was going to say I should mention that I've been really busy this month trying to get a couple of different concerts ready. So I'm not just taking a pleasure cruise over in Japan. I'm actually working really hard.
No, I thought you were just dining on the
music.
local cuisine, all the sushi restaurants you can think of, and something that's non-stereotypical that I can't think of right now because I'm apparently a racist. All right.
What were you saying about the neo-Nazi thing?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, let me just clarify once more.
Not condoning.
You know what? Forget about it. I'm going to talk about the sequel to Megazoic, which, spoiler alert, I've decided to reveal it. The name and the premise here. This is the premiere. You ready?
I've been waiting for this moment with bated breath for a long time.
I mean, you know what it's called. What are you talking about?
I'm acting as a part of the listener, okay?
Okay, fine. Let's do that again. No. I'm going to reveal the title. Are you excited, David?
Yay!
Good work. Here, have a cookie. Anyways, so the title of the second book, Megazoic, the Primeval Power. Gasp accordingly. What could it mean, right?
Primeval. Is that like primordial soup?
No, it's like the prime evils like Diablo that I talked about.
So that's where you got the title. Oh!
Yeah, exactly. This is my Megazoic Diablo crossover, in which one of them wears a bikini. There we go. I've already written this story. Twist.
Spoiler alert.
Anyway.
So what is the actual premise of the primeval power?
I'll read you the back of the book that I have here in this cover concept. 8 months have passed since the fall of the Turanian kingdom. While the Laurasia Corps helps other nations fight the last remnants of their longtime enemy, Corten develops all sorts of nifty new tech for his nation's soldiers, and often accompanies them in battle. Since he's destroyed that ancient and highly advanced cortex that gave the Turanians their power, he's quite qualified for the job. Unfortunately, it's discovered the cortex the Turanians used was only one of many, and a vicious Therizinosaurus with witch-like powers is adamant in retrieving the rest. Accompanying her are ghost-like soldiers called the Shades, with powers beyond any known physical science. Corten realizes his skills and technology might be useless against this mysterious new foe, but as she plans to summon a super-powerful army of dinosaurs from older civilization to ravage the planet and kill everyone he loves, he better learn how to fight her fast.
Well, sounds very, very intriguing. I mean, as Donald mentioned, I've known the title of this book for a little while. I have read.
In fact, in between us recording this, we're reading through it, aren't we?
Well,
a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain there. No, it's gonna be wonderful. And if you've enjoyed the first book, the second book will be even better. I can practically guarantee it, even though I haven't even finished reading it yet.
You haven't finished it? What are you talking about? I could totally jump the shark at the end.
You might, for all I know.
Corten will get on a surfboard, and then a megalodon will come up. And then,
literally jumping the shark, right?
Let me specify, Megalodon was not around during dinosaur times. Stop saying it is, people! Sci-Fi Channel people! Wow, I'm really kind this all back and forth.
You are just loaded on the Sci-Fi Channel, like loaded against them, aren't you?
Yeah, sure, why not?
You've got so many things in your so many things in your quiver, so many rounds in your chamber, like the Cowboys versus Dinosaurs shtick, the thing. Like you just Megalodon.
It's Cowboys versus Dinosaurs versus Megalodon. That's also a crossover between Megazoic and Diablo. What a movie!
Wait. Cowboys versus Dinosaurs crossover with Sharknado using a Megalodon. Can we make a worse movie?
Megalodon Sharknado. Oh my god.
Can we make a worse movie than Sharknado crossed with Cowboys versus Dinosaurs?
I think the correct question is, can we make a better movie?
Easily!
No, I'm going to contact the Academy Awards right now. Forget Forget what other stupid drama
Can
that
we
you
get
have.
can we get a trademark on that now? All the money will be rolling.
Megalodon Sharknado versus Cowboys.
The reason we have ads on the beginning of our segments is because they're fun, not because we need the money, right? So because we're going to be rolling in the dough.
No, we're already rolling in the dough. Money bins and such. And also...
gold piles to swim in, right, Scrooge?
For more references to this joke, listen to episode 3 of The Witwit. Oh, and also, listen to The Ritwits of... What's it called? Dang, I'm ruining this cheap plug.
Clip show?
The Ritwit Clip Show! Because I played the clip about us talking about Scrooge McDuck in that one, too.
Anyway.
Enough lollygagging. Enough filler.
No, I don't think we have enough. We've only managed to go over half an hour without even talking about our dang topic.
What is our dang topic? Tell us, David. I'm very interested.
Well, simply put... this is going to be our, maybe all of our discussion about origin stories. For my own position, to make it very clear, I prefer origin stories that are awful realistic. I understand that most comic book superheroes are awesome characters, and I really like them, but if you look at their origins, they just don't cut it for me. And so Personally, I would want to use this time as what should you avoid as a writer? But Donald over here, when we were talking about this episode, brought up a few points of wait, what are you actually trying to do? Do I really agree with you? So I figured we should, make a discussion about this rather than, we're telling you what to do.
Right, because oftentimes it's like we're sitting the viewer down and we're just staring at them, like we're in some sort of dumb interrogation.
Well, even though we are, better than them, as we acclaim every episode. But,
And which we also disprove every episode by our constant
Pretty
ramblings.
much!
That's the beauty of this show, anyway. So
a living contradiction.
It's great, I love it. Oxymorons.
Aren't it wonderful?
Yes, indeed. So, you were saying that, you like origins to be realistic, and you also said that, most superhero origins aren't realistic. So, my counter-argument isn't that I don't want them to be realistic. I mean, my counter-argument is whether or not they're realistic or not doesn't matter if they're good or not.
Right, I mean it's not indicative of quality.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the characters that came out really early in comics. Your earliest superheroes, your Supermans, your Captain Americas, your Hulks, your Wonder Womans. A lot of these origins are, they were designed in the era that they came from, and they're really dated now. That's the other thing, is that they don't age
Hulk
well.
is newer than all those, though, right? Hulk was 60s, the rest of them are 30s and 40s, right?
I'm pretty sure the Hulk came later, but he's one of the more egregious ones in my mind.
Well, the reason why Captain America came out, because Captain America came out in World War II. So,
yeah, right. Well, right before.
So he was meant to be an icon too. Again, bringing it back, punching Nazis.
No, he came before World War II because he came out as a response to America saying this is horrible, but actually before we got engaged in the war. I think he was
it was before Pearl Harbor.
I think he was 39 or something.
Okay, so the war was starting to rev up.
Yeah, the war was starting in Europe, but America had not entered the fray yet. Because that was why he was so patriotic a symbol, because it was the U.S. saying, we don't like what they're doing, here's a symbol to prove it. And then we got into the war after, the attack on Pearl Harbor and all that stuff. But this is not a history lesson.
Right, well, I kind of like how Stan Lee, he didn't create Captain America, but he did create the origin of him getting frozen and then going to the modern day, because he recognized that the character of Captain America, unlike other characters whose origins can be updated to be whatever time, Captain America needs to start World War II.
Or at least with some kind of war. I mean, look at Iron Man.
Some sort of American war.
Look at Iron Man. He was originally...
Could you really see a character like Captain America starting in the war on Terror, though?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I'm using a different example, that Iron Man's comic origin started in Vietnam era.
Right.
Whereas in the movies, they made it more Afghanistan type, because that was more modern. And obviously...
Well, Punisher often is a veteran too, right?
A war veteran. I don't remember he was Vietnam or what, but because I don't.
I think they've updated it constantly. What war he's in doesn't really matter.
Well,
he just needs to be in a place where he shoots a lot of people.
Well, it's true, and the other thing is, and this is one of the drawbacks of comic books, is that how do you show characters aging except by updating how they were created?
Right. Because
Bruce Wayne is still, by and large, Bruce Wayne is still the Batman. Kal-El, Clark Kent is still the one we know as Superman. Most of the DC is a prominent example, although obviously Marvel has some still active as well, that the original characters are still in place, and we're talking 70, 80 years later.
Right. Well, that's comic book time, right?
It's comic book producing, but not in the comics, apparently.
Right. No, what I'm saying, though, is that, like, even though this much has passed in the real world, in the comic book, it's like it hasn't passed, even though the world itself might have updated. Like, even though Bruce Wayne might still be the same age he was in the 30s, he's now using smartphones.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's just one of those things that if you look at a lot of superhero films, and I'm pretty sure if I let you ramble about origins you don't like, you'd probably bring up Luke in Star Wars as well.
Actually, I wasn't going to, but now I am. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, if you want to,
I was going to ask, though, if we're not just limiting this to superheroes, right? So
superheroes.
You just answered it for me, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Luke is kind of a superhero.
Well, he is a hero, and he has super abilities, but he's not like a comic book superhero. Yes, he's in comics, but he didn't start there. Is my argument. Anyway,
right.
I think it's helpful to look at what origins are just bad. Now, obviously, it's a little subjective. What
makes an origin bad? Yeah.
Yeah, what makes it bad, and why should you avoid it is kind of where I wanted to go with this. But there's more to that. There's more to this onion than just you should avoid this because it's no longer 1930s.
Right. Well, some of them change too. Like, I think Wonder Woman, I don't know if this is her origin, but one of her abilities used to be that she could be restrained by a man, right? If a man held her, she couldn't escape, which sounds super sexist.
Well,
much of the time.
Her origin was through a BDSM creator, so the bondage idea was part of her character.
But the point is they've changed that, though. They don't do that anymore.
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure because it tends to vary depending on who's creating it. That is one distinct benefit of the comic book medium because these characters are such long-lasting that so many people get their chance to try creating their own stories for the character. However, it stinks because the old characters end up getting more time of day than they really probably need, which means new characters get shafted. However, my point is this, at least when it refers to all these different writers coming in, there are so many conflicting pieces of origin, constant rewrites and retcons, and it's confusing as heck.
Right.
Like, even the modern-day origins of Iron Man were done by different writers than the people who created Iron Man, of course. Mm-hmm. But, they did it to update Iron Man to this era. Which, makes sense because the MCU is going to take off from there was the idea.
Well, to bring up the MCU, I think when you're talking about that certain characters are always certain characters, like Tony Stark is always Iron Man, Bruce Wayne is always Batman. Yes, they've tried to change it every once in a while, but still.
But in the end, they...
what I was going to bring up, though, in Marvel, I think they're doing this more often. They're replacing certain characters with certain new characters. Yep. Like Thor was a woman for a little bit. I don't know if he still is. If Thor is still a woman. There's the correct grammatical usage of it.
The current title bearer of Thor is a woman. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't necessarily known what's going on with that, but yes.
Okay, well,
the current Thor is still a woman. And
Iron Man is a black girl now, right?
Well, yes, and Victor Von Doom as well, actually.
As a black girl?
No.
Or just a girl?
No,
or just black?
Doom has his own armor that's, more on his color scheme, acting as an Iron Man type. And then there's the African-American girl, like the teen genius, her name is Riri Williams, who is in another suit that looks very similar to Iron Man.
And isn't Sam Wilson now Captain America?
I mean, we could go on and on about this, but let's just say...
The point why I'm bringing this up, though, is that they're doing this because the movies. Like, they know Robert Downey Jr. doesn't want to be Iron Man forever, but they also know they got to keep having Iron Man. So someday they could replace him with a African-American girl in the movies.
I mean, I'm sure that there's some corporate synergy, but I think it's a symbol that we've run out of good stories to tell about the same characters.
Right.
How many times can you put Tony Stark through alcoholism hell in the comics before it becomes old
Right,
hat,
well, that's what they did with Hulk, right? And this is kind of based off origins as well. Well, not really origins, but more like what to do with this character now that you've got him. Hulk has always been hard for comics to write, and also hard for movies, but comics as well, because he's like, he's sad, he's running away from the government, he's fighting the army, and he can always beat them, but there was always a story can he control it or can he not? He became quickly tiresome, so some comic guy, I don't know who, and then comic book fans are screaming at me right now, came up with a brilliant idea to shoot him into space. Thus, Planet Hulk was born, and suddenly he became a character where he was always Hulk because he had to be, because he was in an alien planet. So in order to...
You could blame it on the creators, but in the story, there's an actual group of
right. I get that. Yeah, no, I meant brilliant. I didn't mean brilliant sarcastically. I legitimately mean brilliant. Like, idea. I probably said it sarcastically because I always say everything sarcastically. Hey, Matt, you're my best friend. Do I mean it? Who knows? Okay.
That means I'm not? What? No. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, so the reason, like, it made it fresh again. Like, he's fighting other characters who are just as strong as him now, and now it's interesting
and
again.
then he came back and he was pissed at everybody.
Hence World War Hulk. All right.
Anyway, I was going to say we've been talking a lot about comic book characters, and there's obviously way more to talk about in popular fiction and all that other stuff too. But like, here are some origins that I just, and I'll tell you what certain parts of them I really don't like. The Hulk is a very good example. If you were exposed to that much gamma radiation, you would not survive. I don't understand how there could be something so latent in Bruce Banner that it decides to take over, create the Hulk, and keep him alive,
right?
Just to become a loose cannon.
Right. Well, like they mentioned that in the Avengers, though. Like with Tony being like, I read about your accident. That much gamma radiation should have killed you. And he used it as a point to, like, maybe the Hulk saved you for a reason. So, but you're right, though. He should have killed him. Also, Barry Allen should have been zapped to death.
He should have been zapped
with
to
lightning
death
and had the chemicals spilled on him, right? But comics,
rather than suddenly, joining this entity called the Speed Force, and
it always bothered me for a while. Why are Spider-Man's spider powers permanent? Because the effects of a lot of animal bites often wear off.
That is true.
The body fights it off.
That is actually something I hadn't thought about. That is something I hadn't thought about, but like I do take issue with the fact that apparently a radioactive, there it is again, spider can apparently give you spider
right.
powers.
Well, that's exactly, someone brought that up to point to me, because I was like, well, wait, so wouldn't a body fight it off, and then he wouldn't be Spider-Man anymore? He would have to constantly keep getting rebitten by the spider until his body develops immunity to it, in which case he can never be Spider-Man. But someone brought up that it was radioactive, not like a venom, where the body fights off. The radioactive, it doesn't create an infection, it changes his cells.
Yeah, it changes
so
his
it's
cells,
not like
right?
an infection that the body fights off. It's
radiation is something that is a more permanent alteration, right, theoretically. And thus the large amount of radiation, being... It should theoretically kill you. Now, a single bite would not, but it could drastically alter. Like, they redid it in the Sam Raimi films,
right,
that it was like a computerized something spider.
It was a genetically designed.
That doesn't even make sense.
It was a genetically designed super spider. Like that
doesn't even make sense, man.
Well, they did it because I guess radioactive was too silly.
Well, it didn't come out of the 70s when radioactive was all the rage.
Well, and it also didn't come out 10 years later when we're having movies with talking raccoons where they embrace the silliness. So,
oh, sorry, you're referring to Spider-Man movie, The Guardians. Okay, I'm like, what?
Right.
10 years later, are you talking about?
Yeah,
anyway.
So.
Another one from comics. I'm sorry, but most people would not turn into the Batman just seeing his parents killed in front of him and falling into a cave where bats were apparently a symbol of fear. Like, you can't tell me that Bruce Wayne is not in like the 0.0000001 percentile
right,
of the world that would respond that way psychologically to something so traumatizing.
Well, that's why I really like the movie Batman Begins, because it comes up with a reason for all of it. Like, it's like when he's up there in the mountains, like he's in a prison near the Himalayas, and he gets found by the League of Shadows. He tells them, like, whatever Liam Neeson's character's name is. I know it's Ra's al Ghul, but he has a name before it's revealed it's Ra's al Ghul. Henry Descartes or something like that. I don't know. And he tells them that you can't, in order to fight something as corrupt as this, you need to be more than just a man. You need to be something that cannot be corrupted, like a symbol. Which, of course, a symbol can be corrupted. Going back to Nazis, the swastika started out as a Boy Scout thing, right? Or I don't know.
There's some peaceful origin.
But like, the point is, though, like, he couldn't be just a man. He had to be a symbol, something that, like, maybe eventually someone else could take the mantle. So, Batman had to be larger than life, and he picked bats because bats frighten him. He went to a cave. Bunch of bats.
Bats frightened him, and bats are a symbol of fear, and he wanted to strike fear in the hearts of criminals everywhere, and thus the greatest detective to symbolize himself after a mammal.
if you really want to symbolize fear, he should have been the original Spider-Man. Spiders are way more scary than bats. Like, let me just...
Well, you're far more common and more people are scared of them, but I think bats honestly look like creepier than spiders by themselves. But I'm not as scared of spiders.
In terms of discussions, I completely disagree, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, it's not the discussion for this podcast. Anyway.
We'll save it for our Nature Phobia podcast. Which you can listen to here.
You can be afraid of everything.
Right. You heard that cheap plug I did for this non-existent podcast, right?
Yeah, non-existent one, right.
All right.
Okay, the last one that I thought of prior, and I mean, if you have more, please chime in, but how do so many people with Force potential, like, basically slip through cracks? I realize the galaxy is huge in Star Wars, but seriously, if they have connection to the Force, and they have people who are using the Force all the freaking time, how are so many people have like, not noticed
This is what midichlorians are for. People hate midichlorians because they think that it's the Force. No. Here's the truth behind midichlorians, and why people need to suck it up about their hate of them. Midichlorians are not the Force. Midichlorians are just used to measure the Force. When they say that Anakin has a high midichlorian count, they found out that he has all these little beings within him that are drawn to the Force. The Force itself is still that magical power. The midichlorians only exist so that there can be a calculable number on how powerful Anakin is. So
to throw it out there as well, I think it's similar to a Geiger counter. It measures how powerful the thing is.
Right, exactly. So people need to shut up about midichlorians ruining the Force. The Force is still the mystical force that you love it as. It just happens to be easily measured.
I was about to say, I realize we talk about Star Wars a lot, but can I just throw this out there since you use that comparison for the Force? I love the shirt that says duct tape is like the Force. It has a light side and a dark side, and it holds the universe together.
Yeah, although I feel like that the universe isn't... If the duct tape is holding the universe together, it needs to do a little bit better. The universe is expanding like crazy.
Right, that is
it
true.
needs all the duct tape it could possibly need right now. But in terms of bad origin stories, I think someone like Luke or Anakin is fine. But, and again, this is the most interconnected episode we've ever had... Rey is a terrible origin story from The Force Awakens. And let me explain why.
All right, please, because her origin is different from
right.
Luke and
It
Anakin
is like
in that respect.
But she is just super powerful for no reason. Like people are like, oh, but Luke is powerful for no reason. Luke made mistakes. Luke got his ass kicked by Vader in Empire Strikes Back because he wasn't ready, and this was after he had been training for a few weeks. Rey, without ever wielding a lightsaber, without ever being taught,
practically fights Kylo Ren
and wins, basically. True. I mean, yeah, she was drawn away by the collapse, the literal Earth being driving them apart. Well, not Earth, but you know what I mean. Okay, but the ground. So, and also,
Toa of Earth.
She can do a Jedi mind trick by just trying 3 times after it took Luke 3 movies and lots more training.
Well, and I'm not so sure that some of that isn't simply.
She has so many midichlorians, I guess.
Well, I was about to go there though. What if it comes out that she had an even higher count than, say, the person who became Vader?
This is why she's a bad hero. Then it's not earned. Like that's why I'm not excited for her rematch with Kylo Ren because she already beat him with no training. Why should I care if she gets training?
Yeah, because theoretically it would just become a route at that point.
Unless. I was actually talking to another friend of mine, I think it might have been the same friend, outside the podcast, about it. If I was going to write the 8th Star Wars movie, with Force Awakens being exactly the way it is, this movie I don't like because it has this character that's too powerful. Oh, by the way, she knows the Millennium Falcon better than Han, even though she's only flew in it like once or twice, and Han's been in it his entire life.
Well, she was a really darn crack pilot, too.
Yeah,
so,
but she never really...
It's an old bucket, it's pretty easy to figure out.
She never flew before, except for that one time. Now, she was an engineer, and she scavenged stuff, so I'll give her that. So she knows the parts of stuff very well, but...
Well, and my thing is, and you've gone on this before, because you are just not fond of Force Awakens or Rey in particular.
Right, well, Rey's not my main problem with The Force Awakens, but anyways, go... Yep.
She's a wish fulfillment character.
Right, exactly. But so is Luke. But Luke is different in that he's earned it. He is the character, he's the relatable farm boy who's poor, who dreams of bigger things and goes off to do those bigger things.
Well, I don't know about relatable when we grew up in suburbia, but you know.
Who hasn't grown up in suburbia? Except for city folk, I guess. And country folk.
Except for farm folk, I guess. Anyway.
No, okay, fine. Well, there you go. Alright, so, point is, though, Luke sounds like someone we could aspire to be. We could never aspire to be Rey, because she's already perfect. I don't know. Anyways, point is, though, what was I going to say? Oh, this is going to say about Star Wars Episode 8. I would write it that what Rey experienced in episode 7 was a rare phenomenon. This is such a half-assed, like, trying to, like, swipe it away. Like,
because we do things professionally.
But, okay, so she experienced what's called a force spike. Like, every now and then, the midichlorians go nuts. And then...
For no
right, because, like, something happens where, like, they're the chosen one or whatever. But then, countering that, in order to balance it out, she loses a bunch of them really quickly. So in episode 8, she suddenly is way weaker. Now, the way you could write this in, because that sounds really half-assed written in to explain away something I didn't like about the last one, which it is, here's what I would do, though. It's already been experienced by Anakin. He was in the middle of a force spike, this theoretical force spike, until he became Darth Vader.
So you're saying he became far less powerful when he finally went to the dark side?
And then eventually it came back. Like after a force spike and a force, I don't know, descent, force plunge, it balances back out. But point is, you get this sudden burst, and then you get exhausted for a bit, and then you go back to normal. That's what I would say. So, Anakin had it, and then he came back to normal, so by the time of Rogue One, where he's cutting down all those... I love that part. I did like Rogue One a lot better. I did eventually see that. I liked it a lot more. But, when he's cutting down all those poor troopers in that ship at the end of Rogue One, he's back to normal, right? But he's not spiked, he's just normal. That would be my explanation. So...
Fair enough.
So Rey in episode 8 would have to fight through her force plunge or whatever,
and
then earn her way to be better, is what I'm saying.
I'm glad that you're going into so much detail about this, because it brings up something that I was thinking of might be worth touching on, especially because we're talking about origins.
Right.
But I kind of want to say the thing about the other person before going back, because I don't want to forget it.
Right. Luke or Bruce Wayne or...
No. Anyway, so in short, and hopefully we come back to this, You're hoping that Rey goes through more of an actual hero's journey as opposed to just being handed everything.
Right, exactly. Like, she has to earn being a hero, not just be given it.
Okay. So, what I'm amazed I'm bringing this up, because in our conversations pre-recording, you were the one talking about this, but, there is something about Spider-Man's origin that I don't like. But there is something about Spider-Man's origin that is extraordinarily relatable, and that is this. He takes the life lesson from a mentor who he cherished, and when that mentor was no longer around, he applied it.
Right. With great power comes great responsibility, yeah, because he heard that, he blew it off, he fought a wrestler guy, which, yes, it's in the Sam Raimi movie, but it's pretty closely tied to the comics, as far as I know.
Yes.
So, this is, like, pretty much a straight adaptation, that part, anyways. And then he lets a guy go out of spite, out of someone else, and then that robber later goes on to kill Uncle Ben.
Right.
So, he didn't get the responsibility, and it cost his dear old uncle, so...
Right. But that in and of itself is kind of like a redeeming thing to me.
It makes...
Like, the spider bite being the catalyst for this somehow magically happened. Okay, magic is the wrong word, but...
Radioactively
somehow incredibly happening. But that is something that everyone could relate to. Because not only is it a maxim to live by, but he witnessed somebody die when he could have done something about it and decided this will not happen again. Of course, being Peter Parker, that never really... it doesn't always work.
Right.
Because his natural luck is horrible.
Right.
But, and there are things about... I just want to throw out, as I might have said this earlier, but it's worth reiterating even if I did, that a origin story that does not necessarily jibe with sensible or great does not by itself tank a character.
Right. Well, that's what Stan Lee did. Like, when he went to Marvel, like, before he came up with all these cool characters like Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, all the classic stuff from the 60s in the booming age of comic books, a lot of superheroes were just characters with cool powers. Stan Lee was the first to make them real people that happened to have superpowers.
Don't forget that there are other people besides Stan Lee who are just as instrumental, especially Jack Kirby.
Right, but like he was working with Stan Lee. Yeah, like two of them created Spider-Man, right?
Ditko was Steve Ditko and Stan Lee that created Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. Who did Jack Kirby do?
Jack Kirby was Fantastic Four and a lot of their associated
Right,
characters.
I guess that's true. Yeah, so okay, I shouldn't give it all to Stan Lee. I'm just gonna give it to most of Stan Lee. Not most. He's the one with the most recognizable name.
He's the face.
Okay.
He's the face.
Right, yeah.
He's the guy who's not afraid to put himself out there, and the artist...
He's the one who has all the cameos.
Not an insult to the artists, but they tend to hide behind their easels, kind of.
Well, like Bob Kane and... Who's the other guy who came up with Batman?
Bill Finger.
Apparently, Bob Kane got all the credit, even though Bill Finger came up with pretty much everything.
Yeah, there's a book you could find about that if you
like. Bob Kane came up with the idea of him being a bat. Bill Finger came up with everything else. Like, he came up with the dead parents, he came up with the Gotham...
I'm not 100% sure of the veracity of that statement. However, I do know that there is, the other deserved far more credit than originally earned.
I mean...
Now,
yeah.
This is not the place to talk about, compensating creators for their work.
Right, but we're talking about creators, though, thus origins. So
a different bucket of worms to get into. But here is something that is inevitably considered in most origins and either skipped or, hopefully done justice, and that is the hero's journey.
All right, David, so, I know what the hero's journey is, because I'm a writer, and I'm a published author. You'd think I would do a cheap plug there, but I'm holding back. Just kidding, buy Megazoic on Amazon!
Cheap plug. Might as well, right?
Listeners, you don't have to buy my book. I don't care. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the art. Or am I? I don't know. Who knows? What's the hero's journey?
Well, I imagine the concept of getting rewarded for your tale would be nice, but, you're not in it just for the money. But anyway, the hero's journey is a classic archetypal story pattern, and there's nothing wrong with using it.
Well, it's a classic for a reason. Like, that's the thing about cliches. They're cliches for a reason, because they work.
Theoretically. I mean, look at so many of the older origin stories, why they don't hold up today. Well, maybe they were just done in a time that reflected the things going on around them, which, we're always a product of our own culture, right? But to throw it out there as well, honestly, most of the good ideas were taken early.
Right, exactly.
And so, so many of the origin stories that we get now, maybe they're not as successful because they can't seem as original anymore.
Yeah, well, some of the older ones are still terrible, though. Like, one of my favorites, I think, is, I forget what it's called. I think I read this in a Cracked article.
Oh, God.
It was either Condor Man or Black Condor or something about condors. He lost his parents as a baby. Thankfully, he was raised by a bunch of condors. And because he was raised by a bunch of condors, they taught him how to fly. Because that's what humans have been missing all this time.
Dang it. You mean if I wanted to fly, I just needed to be taught by birds, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's not that we're not aerodynamically impossible. Like, we've been trying for so long. Yeah, we got planes, but we're trying to invent jetpacks. We tried to make our own fake wings. But no, what we've been missing all this time is that we just weren't taught properly. So.
Okay, what's Sam Wilson's excuse then?
He's got the robot jetpack wings. Okay. And condors are different from falcons. Condors are just magic condors, I guess.
That is fair. But anyway.
They're both birds of prey. But anyways. So, but, point is, though, there's some older scenarios that are terrible. But the reason why all the good ones seem to... And this is true about anything. Well, the reason why all the good ones seem to be older is because those are the ones that have stuck. And since there's been so many origin stories, the fact that those specific ones have lasted so long, it's because they're really good.
Like the hero's journey in general. Not necessarily the...
Right, exactly, not
the specifics of it.
Well, one of the big parts of the hero's journey, and every story I can think of, at least not everyone, that's an exaggeration, the mentor. There's always a mentor, and more often than not, the mentor always dies, because in order for the hero to truly learn the lesson, he has to use what the mentor has taught him without the mentor there to help him.
Absolutely.
Right, and this is Obi-Wan, this is Gandalf briefly. This is
as long as I can spare them.
Right. Fly, you fools. Which was code for use the damn eagles already.
Shall not pass! Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, like I said, fly, you fools is code for use the damn eagles. Let them fly to Mount Mordor. Mount Mordor. You know what it's
Mount Mordor.
Right, anyway.
Is that anything like
Mount
order?
Mordor of the Doomy Lands. Anyways.
Order.
So,
anyway.
Okay, so spoiler alert for Megazoic. I'm not going to do the cheap plug because it's getting old already. But, I'm guilty of this as well. So if you don't want to be spoiled for my book, or if you don't care... if you don't care, then don't skip. Okay. There's a mentor in it who does die. Because he kind of had to. And to be fair, he's not just a mentor for the main character. He's a mentor for a bunch of other characters, too.
Sure.
So, it's a good trope to use. The mentor who dies. And so the people who he's mentoring have to learn the lesson themselves.
Well, and I always look at it as impetus to go down the right path. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's because somebody who was inspirational to us passed, moved away, died,
here's another example. Uncle Ben. There we go. That's another mentor who died. Why didn't I think of that?
I would... Never mind. Anyway.
He's the Obi-Wan. Okay.
Yes. Anyways. It's just, to me, like, I think one of my Ranger fanfics, I purposely tried avoiding it. Like, they're just figuring it out on their own. And while that story theoretically...
So there is no mentor, or there is a mentor, he just doesn't die?
There is no mentor. Like, aside from... Somebody must have created this power, or created a way to harness this power. But aside from that, like, the person is not alive to give any advice to anyone, and thus it avoids that model. However, it makes the story a little more chaotic because...
Makes sense.
Because it's somebody trying to figure out for themselves what's right and what's wrong.
And there's no one to just spell it out for them. And the world is complicated, so it can take
absolutely.
A bit. Which, that's real life,
there's
though.
Learning curve, which is why I like it.
Here's a notable exception as well.
I haven't written that far on that said fic, but anyway.
Right. Well, anyways, that's okay. Again,
it's me. You can figure.
You can do. Look, stop writing so many damn songs, and also stop being busy.
Well,
neither that you have any control. Anyways, so one example, another exception of the hero's joining mentor who dies, and this is a different reason. Splinter of the Ninja Turtles. As far as I know, he hasn't died at any point. I mean, I think he's come close, but they've always managed to save him.
Nah, it's possible.
He's always there to give the turtles advice, as far as I know. There could be a story where he died.
Through different incarnations of the TMNT universe, and you could find one where he did, but, that's...
Right, but, the point is, he's always there for them. And, which you might sound like a cop-out, but there's always new lessons to be learned.
There's theoretically always progress to be made. How you learn that. Some people are good at learning things themselves. Some people are very self-driven, and honestly, that makes the easiest kind of hero to write because they learn from their mistakes and they turn out better for it.
They should still make mistakes.
Well,
but they should learn from them. That's what makes them more human.
They should not be perfect, and that is the thing that's nice about the origins from Marvel characters is that they aren't perfect. Mm-hmm. Superman is called a gigantic Boy Scout because his morals are pretty much pristine. Most of the time. Right,
and that's why, I think the moral being pristine is fine, but, one of the things I really liked about Man of Steel is how relatable they made him. Like, the fact that he was bullied a lot and he had to figure out how to deal with it and how to cope with it. That's relatable. Everyone can relate to being bullied, except for, pure jocks, I guess. But even then, I'm sure they've been bullied and they just don't admit it. But,
well, and they usually say that being a bully is response to having been bullied, right?
Right, exactly. So, and plus, humans are just terrible.
Vicious cycles. They suck.
Anyways... So,
but I mean, I just want to throw out we have been spending a lot of time talking about comic book superheroes, and obviously we like a ton of comic book superhero characters either through seeing them.
Okay, here's an origin story that it's not a bad one, I guess. When you think of another bad one, but I might as well mention him. Harry Potter has a really good origin story with his parents saving him, but not saving him, sort of saving him. It's confusing. He's the boy who lived. And yes, you could say he was given everything, but at the same time, he was given everything, and he had no idea what the hell to do with it. He's different from Ray.
That is very true. He had to earn his understanding more than... I mean, that's something we...
he had all the money, he had all the fame, he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the skill.
We really didn't talk about in Origins in general, and that is, I think we've talked about this in some other episode. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we talked about having, a focal character who stands in for the audience. Like Harry Potter...
We've talked about this several times, actually. In fact, we talked about this in the very first episode with the fantasy one.
Well, that's fine.
Back in the day.
But I'm just throwing out there that Harry Potter is going through this for the very first time with us. And that's such a brilliant way to set this audience up for success, because we now see everything for the first time through him, who's also seeing it for the very first time.
Right, I've always said that's really cool, and that's why, Alice is the main character in Alice in Wonderland, someone who goes to Wonderland, and that's why the Narnia kids are from Earth. I think it's clever if it's from a character who's from that world, but they find some other way to make them experience it all for the first time. Like I've said before, Frodo never leaves the Shire until he has to go on the journey to stop
Hero's
the One
Journey.
Ring.
Plug. Anyway.
To Mount Mordor and the Doomlands. This is a very interconnected episode. Anyway...
Well, I mean, when we talk about origins, you could talk about every story, because every story starts somewhere.
Okay, give me an example of a bad origin, both scientifically and, I guess, the Condor one.
That's
and,
a pretty bad one. So, what do you mean, the science doesn't work and the story is just not great?
Yeah.
Well...
We're going to edit out an hour-long pause here, guys.
It's not an hour long, but, I don't know how far you've gone into the X-Men universe, but there are a whole ton of mutants in there. And some of them have come to, the academy to learn. Some of them are just outcasts from their community. But some of them are really, really bad. Some of them...
Like Toad?
No, not bad like evil. Bad like there's a guy who's got eyes all over him. How the world do you deal with that? I don't even know what his origin is, but I can't imagine it being very clever or good.
I mean, aren't the mutants just they're born that way? Some of them are created through like weapon.
Well, I mean, depends on what you define.
Deadpool.
It depends on what you define as mutated versus Marvel's big thing with the Inhumans. You go through Terrigenesis and you gain these powers or something. Let's talk about this one. There's an Inhuman who is playing a pretty important role in the current summer event crossover called Secret Empire in Marvel. His name is Barf.
Wait, like the dog in Spaceballs.
Like the Mog in Spaceballs, but no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Mog, no. Right, yes.
However, his power is that he can...
That he barfs?
Partly, yes. But that's not it. There is a bit more to it. He can vomit up something, like create something and vomit it up.
So it's like those times when you'll have like that magic bag that you pull out whatever the plot requires, except that he is that bag.
It's awful.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, and without trying to spoil too much of Secret Empire, he barfs up something that actually, impacts the story. I'm like, I didn't expect this to go there, but wow.
Who would have thought that out of characters named Barf, that he's the second best behind, the spoof Chewbacca character, played by John Candy. Rest in peace. Anyway.
I mean, but...
That's hilarious.
Yeah, isn't it? It's a horrible origin. The science makes absolutely no sense. The story is terrible. Well, and this is a really, really new character, too. He only came out, last year, I think.
He'll only last a couple of issues. And maybe he'll come back later as a joke, like Taserface.
That's the thing. Some comic teams are hilarious. I was thinking it would be really fun to come up with a team of heroes that their superpowers were all, disgusting things. So, somebody could wield snot as a weapon.
So, the Garbage Pail Kids.
Somebody could wield snot as a weapon. Somebody could use vomit as a weapon.
This is the Garbage Pail
Somebody
Kids.
Could use feces, kind of a thing. I mean,
the Garbage Pail
As
Kids!
if I knew that
You're
very
describing
well. Which is why
this.
I've been ignoring you say it 3 times. Anyways.
I'm just saying it's already been done, and it's terrible.
But that's the joke. I mean, okay. One.
Oh, you're making a joke. In which case, fine. Someone should do that.
One fun thing about it. We've talked about origins being bad. Just by nature. Here's an idea.
Right.
Oh, this is really dated. Oh, this is just not original. Oh, this is just a horrible thing, even if it becomes a great character. Or this is just a horrible character, like our friend Barf here. But I'm curious.
Or Ray,
I'm curious. How much fun do you think it'd be to come up with the corniest origin ever, or the worst team ever, and just let it ride and see what happens? How bad?
Okay, here we go. I got something. It's sort of based on an older idea we had, and what you just said about Barf. So it's a spoof Ninja Turtles team.
Oh, jeez.
It's not okay. Back in the day, David and I here came up with the adolescent mutant samurai tortoises.
No, the hybrid.
We were super bored.
The hybrid moronic samurai tortoises, wasn't it?
Maybe something like that. I don't know.
Anyway,
who knows? But whatever it was, okay, I got very into that. But it's involving your idea too. So there's barf, and then there's puke, and then there's hurl, and then there's vomit. And they all they're turtles. Maybe
and they all upchucked happily ever after.
Oh, for God's sake. We keep trying to push them back down, but they keep coming back up. Oh, God. Anyways. There we go, we did it. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Is there anything else to talk about with this?
Well,
or is that too much of a zinger?
No.
Did I ruin the episode?
No. I will recover shortly.
And now we're going to edit out that hour-long pause.
Okay. All right. Okay, so there are some really bad origins out there. That one was pretty damn spectacular, I gotta say. But anyways, we've talked a lot about comic book superheroes. And, obviously it's one major strain of fiction, of characters and whatnot. Now,
right.
I'm a big superhero guy. And you've known this for a long time.
No, really?
I know, right? Such a surprise. It was so surprising when I watched a non-hero-based show, right? Anyway, to throw it out there, I prefer the origin stories in Tokusatsu. Now, I know I harp on it all the time, and I pretty much want to rip off something from a different Tokusatsu show every month. I get that. But I'll tell you one of the reasons why I really like tokusatsu compared to comic book superheroes on the whole. Not to say I don't like either one. And that is this. Generally, it's regular people thrown into an extraordinary situation and being put in a situation where they either become the hero or they die trying.
Right.
I really like that because they're characters that are pretty relatable. They come from Middletown, USA, Guam, wherever, you know, and they might come together as a team. They might come together as just individuals that, you know, have to work together, but they are given some amazing opportunity to be a hero to somebody else, and they make the best of it.
Well, that's what kind of like what Peter Parker does, but you're applying it to a whole team. Like Peter Parker is kind of that way. He was given this, like by accident. And he's a normal guy. He tries to be a normal guy afterwards, too.
That's fair. I mean, he's still trying to balance high school and stuff.
But he's the rare exception. Like, a lot of them are
But a lot of them are, you know, hard to believe. Like, Barry Allen had a lab accident. He somehow survived.
Well, and also, he was a lab guy. Like, he's a scientist, so it's not as relatable as a...
Yeah, he was a scientist.
I mean, Peter Parker's a nerd, and he knows a lot of science, but he's overall
he's
just
smart, but he's still
science guy in a high school,
But he's still a high schooler, and that much is obvious.
Right.
And, you know, we talked about making characters relatable before, but I think that Tokusatsu does a very good job of that, and that's one of the reasons I appreciate their origin stories. It doesn't require, like, reality-bending leaps of faith, like being the 0.000000101% of the population who would actually respond.
101?
Sorry, I had a certain number of zeros.
That's fine, I just think that's unique. I like it.
Anyways, the point being that those origins are slightly more realistic, and that's why I like the origins more of Tokusatsu. On the whole, I really like both genres. But I did find that it would be I did think it would be a great idea to, you know, give a couple of our patented tipperoonies about what to do, what not to do with origins. So just a couple of really quick ones. These are more things like, don't do this, and well, you can take it to mean whatever you want it to mean.
Right.
But tipperoonie, don't rely on just the hero's journey stages, like the 12 steps or whatever. Explore other literary devices if you really want a good origin. You know, you have to come up with a decent idea anyways. So why fit it into that one framework? Why not try and incorporate something else? So don't just rely on the hero's journey. And as much as I love our friend Gaston, don't just rely on cuisine d'histoire by itself unless you truly can't cook up anything better.
But good one.
I wasn't sure if you'd want to take that opportunity or not. I was hoping you would. But anyway, you know, those are just some tips. Don't rely on what's already out there. Try and find something. We've said many times on this podcast that there's no such thing as a truly original idea anymore. And while that is true, there are still numerous ways to combine things together that have not been done before. So try doing that.
Right, exactly. And also, here's something I'm going to say. Don't rely on the hero's journey just on its own. However, at the same time, cliches exist for a reason. So don't try and subvert a cliche just to subvert a cliche.
If you don't have a mentor simply so you don't have to kill off the mentor, like, what other things are you sacrificing?
Or like if you have someone, I don't know, just like I'm trying to think of an example, but like
if you don't have some point in the character's past where he left home to become this adventurer, don't
do it just to do it. Like come up with a reason why.
What I was going to say is, and you're never even intending to tell it in flashback. Like it just is. He was, to use a bad quote, born that way.
Right.
Oh yeah, he just popped out and he was already deciding, I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to do this. No, somewhere he had an origin. It's probably not very interesting, and you might not be planning to tell it.
If it's that origin, I feel like this origin has to do with the divine. Right?
But don't just do it.
Like Hercules holding up the snakes.
Oh, you mean like baby... Okay, sorry. No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. Baby Hercules. No. Yeah, he kind of popped up and was like, I'm going to fight crime. Fight Greek crime.
Well, I'm referring to, like, you know, the first stage of the hero's journey, they talk about setting up a small town and how there's a conflict that brings you out into the bigger world around you. And you don't have to start at the small town, but, you know, if you're not planning on telling some foundational experience, is there a reason for that, or are you just skipping it because that's the boring part? Don't just skip it because it's the boring.
Well, here's what you could do. Here's something you could you can subvert them, just do it for a reason. Like you say, you gotta go to, start at the small town, then go out to the adventure. You could be in the big city and the adventure is already there, However, you could still make it work because then he decides to join it. He's been ignoring it for a while.
That is true.
And finally he's like, you know what? Fine, I have to go down there and fight all this stuff.
Seeing it for the first time, even though he's been around it his whole life. Which,
Right, so like you could work it with it. You just have to come up with a reason other than I'm just doing it just to subvert the cliche.
I'm going to change metaphors just a little bit and say that with this stuff, when I was in my college days doing voice lessons, my vocal teacher always said that if I made a choice, singing-wise, presentation-wise, if I wanted to move my arm here, he had no problem with it unless I did not have a reason.
Right.
If you don't have a reason,
sense.
then why are you doing that thing? Is what he would ask. And the same applies with your writing. You don't have to do every step. You can skip a couple and probably be okay, so long as you have a purpose in doing so. As long as you know that, then nobody can question what you're doing.
Exactly.
Whether it's origin, whether it's climax, whether it's denouement, whatever.
You're writing because you want to tell a story. And if you're doing it, you're trying to subvert cliches just for cliches. You're not trying to tell a story from you. You're just trying to not tell a certain story. Right. If that makes any sense. So, I don't know. Point is, listeners, and the point of this whole podcast, these are all guidelines. Do whatever you want, but have a reason. I don't know. What am I saying? What are we saying? What is the point of anything?
Okay, the point of this is, from our experiences, these are things worth not doing. Particularly, like, just sticking to the hero's journey. If you're going to do that, have a reason. But we can't tell you what's right or wrong outside of that.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay, cool. All right, so I think that sounds good. It sounds good, David. So, boy, this is a long one.
Well,
a lot to talk about, don't we? They all can't be shorts. Who knows what crazy adventures the Rit crew will be up to, us two twits.
Who talk about ridding that are obviously better than you.
Us two twits on this thing about ridding, but more often than not, it's just a bunch of shit. Anyway.
Well, it
rhymes, so I might not censor it. Except now I might because I said it rhymes, so people will get the idea.
You can figure it out. But anyway, hey, if they want to get a hold of us, Donald, how could they do that?
All right, email us at mattd@matthewdonaldcreator.com. I'm not spelling it out because it's on the description. You can figure it out.
Unless you're blind.
If you email us for any questions or comments you have for the show and specify any one of the hosts, you can use your own email system or the contact page on my website. So that's where you can talk to us about the podcast. If you want to follow me personally, I have a professional Facebook account at Matthew Donald Creator. I'm updating it more often. Like, I try to... there's a lot of stuff there now. Or you can follow my Twitter at MatthewDonald64. Why 64? Because when I went to visit the Liberty Bell as a kid, it cracked and fell on my toes, and I screamed in pain so much I hulked out and rampaged across the entire city. But I was eventually calmed through a mixture of divine influence, anger management class, and a super long yoga session. Recovering from my great ordeal, a wise monk approached me and said I should train with him and to learn the arcane ways of spiritual peace and tranquility. After countless years, I eventually ascended into enlightenment and zoned out into another dimension, where I met a bunch of interdimensional alien beings who had just left Peru in the 1950s after escaping from Indiana Jones, at which point they teleported me back to Earth, where I promptly crashed into Arizona, formed a giant mile-long crater, and blacked out for decades. Until I woke him back to my mortal form, now being back to a child once more with no memory of any of the events that transpired. That was until one day it all became apparent to me in a dream, and the next morning I awoke and told my mother of all the great adventures I had done throughout all the decades of being transported back to the present as a child once more. At which point she was like, yeah, that's great, hon, now go do your homework. I went upstairs and the first question was, what's 8 times 8? And that's why I chose 64. That's the real reason.
Oh my goodness. That was like a purple kumquat joke.
Exactly.
Oh my god. Now
as if the episode wasn't long enough. No, I didn't just say that off the cuff. I wrote that. I'm not that good.
Anyway. Oh Lord. Well, if we're peeking behind the curtain, I prepared the lyrics ahead of time for the theme song that I worked so hard on and got rejected.
Yeah, oh, that's life. Life sucks. Life is meaningless. Death is inevitable. There's no point in anything. And this is probably the 12th episode, and we've only had 11, where I've gone through a major depressing existential crisis about how everything sucks, and I'm going to kill myself.
At the very end.
And we've only had 11 episodes. So,
well, until next time, listeners, thanks for listening to The Ritwit, where us two twits who talk about writing decide to take a shit on what writing means. But anyway.
Exactly. Hey, this will be the first time I get to censor you. The reason why I want to censor all this, by the way, is because I don't have to do the explicit tag and limit our audience. Especially considering that Megazoic is supposed to be a children's book.
That is true. No, that's fine.
I mean, it's teen, so teens have heard swearing. I don't know.
All right.
I mean, teen, tween, it's fine. It's not like it's a picture book, so.
Your target audience.
I'm Matt Donald!
And I'm Matt David.
See you next time.
Until next time, listeners, thanks for tuning in. The Ridway.